Hi, this is John Reed live from LiveWorks 2016. I'm joined by Tommy and Volker from G&D. We're going to talk about Internet of Things security, a popular topic for you and me, but maybe not in the keynotes. They didn't even discuss it in the first keynotes. What happened, man? Why didn't they talk about it in the keynote?
I think they talked about it implicitly because they were indicating that by joining the ThingWorks community, you will be served in a secure way. Nevertheless, we feel that it is definitely a topic, and from the reaction we were getting also to our presence at the show, there are other people feeling the same way. It needs more. It needs to be addressed explicitly, and it needs to be taken seriously from the very beginning of your IoT project, because it's really harmful and really expensive to retrofit the security back into a live running system.
Right, and that was Volker, by the way, of G&D. We also have Tommy. How's it going?
Good, thanks. It's good to be here. It's interesting to see what's happening in the industry here and what the kind of pitches are in the different areas. I would say that yeah, I mean, many of these conferences that we go to, the security is actually brought up and it's talked a lot, but for some reason it was missed in the keynotes. But maybe some of the industrial environments, they are kind of closed. So if you think in that box, you maybe are not thinking all the security things that you have to think about. So that might be one reason why it wasn't kind of covered in this context and in the get-go.
And if I may add to that, typically it's dependent and it's overlooked because it's left to the customer to use their level of security that they need, that they have already in place. So it's an appropriate, or it might be an appropriate approach to leave it. Okay, we can adopt and we can live with any security architecture that our customers or our users deploying these IoT projects have in place. But from our perspective, it's falling short because it should be designed in. So security by design, I think, is the way to go for the IoT world.
So what kinds of questions are you guys getting at your booth the last day and a half from customers?
Great, it's a really great question. So, of course, as our booth says, security and security for industrial environments, for example, scalable security. Of course, the first questions are like, okay, so what do you guys do regarding the security? And we have all kinds of people like consultants, healthcare device manufacturers, industrial players coming. Okay, all right. We have a use case. Yeah, automotive. We have a use case for gas and oil, and we need to add security. How can we do it? Can we do something together? So, yeah, we get all kinds of questions, and then they're asking, okay, so what layers do we secure? Can we do hardware security, software security? Can we secure the connections? Can we secure the application data? Yeah, we get all kinds of questions, and yeah, maybe Volker can talk about a little bit like how do we approach it.
And of course, we also got a couple of good answers to that. And the first big answer would be, yes, we are providing scalable security. And I think that is the concept that the IoT needs, because every project is different, every use case is different in the level of security that it needs to be protected, and also the investment that is justified to secure it. So nobody does security just for the sake of being secure, and there is no such thing as 100% security, but you need to find the adequate security for your particular use case that you're doing currently, but also all the future use cases that you might come up with. So it's a very good idea to already think from the very beginning, okay, which is my minimum threshold that I can live with. And for that, we provide solutions that can start with software layer security, protecting applications on the mobile, protecting application in the machine domain, protecting communication, data in transit, etc. Nevertheless, it can end up with high security boxes that we are using for central bank degree security, or even defense industry security.
Yeah. Also, I could add to that also the security can be very different depending. Let's say if you're doing consumer type of IoT device, or if you're doing in for the industrial enterprise environment. I typically kind of I try to educate the customers. Okay, you have to find the right level of security that you need for your application. I mean, if you are building some kind of irrigation system for home environment, measuring the moisture in the soil and triggering the irrigation system to sprinkle your yard. Well, maybe you don't need the hardware security for that, but maybe if that, depending how that system is then connected to something else, then there might be some security needs that you need to take into account. And then of course we go to a health applications and things like that where you do need to the high level of security, privacy, and also other things that you have to think about. But we have this saying here that. Sometimes we say that you have to have good enough security. I try to educate. Well, that's okay. One thing I would like to change that term to you have to have a right security for your application and needs. And it's interesting here in US. Many players that we talk to, when we ask them about the security, they say, well, we know we have to take care of it. But we haven't really put that much focus on it yet because we want to get our application out there, build a minimum viable product or something like that. But I said, well, okay, I get that. I understand that a little bit. But the thing is that if you cannot just add the security later on. So you kind of have to build the security for your products in layers. So I try to say you should think about this a little bit because if it's going to impact your hardware design, you don't want to go back like 6 months in a hardware design cycle. It can get expensive to add it afterwards. It's not that necessary.
But I really liked your example with the sprinkler system. Yeah, that by per se is not an application that really calls for hardware security. Nevertheless, if this system is controlled by your mobile phone and almost for any type of IoT service or IoT interaction, we by now demand an app for that. Can I control that with my mobile phone? Can I control that on my iPad? So all of that ultimately ends up being on this universal remote control that we are so happy using. But by that, if we also have the digital car key on our mobile phone, or if this sprinkler application is malicious or can be attacked, then it quite easily can spur into all the other domains that you are controlling with your mobile phone. So you need to also think about the domains that you're in there, and you need to think about where does the chain of security actually end. And I think that's a quite valuable thought.
Well, this is interesting because I recently did another enterprise security podcast, and the company in question, Onapsis, was talking about how for enterprises, for example, if you have an older version of an application running in a test instance, that could be enough for a smart intruder to come in, and then from there to sort of assess your whole enterprise. It's like one backdoor gets you into everything, and it seems like this is going to be a huge issue for Internet of Things right now because so many of the devices have their own software and their own protocols, right? And so as long as you can get into one, you can essentially get into them all, right?
As this Internet of Things and the Internet of Everything, you by definition have everything connected. Right. You're running that risk. But looking, and we had that discussion already. Looking at the IT security world will not do the trick entirely, because if you look at, they don't have their house in order either, and they are working on it since 40 years. But exactly as you said, there are, with all these new devices coming into play and with the IoT revolution breaking grounds also in the enterprise, and basically it's just another facet of the Internet of Things, of the cybersecurity, because every maker and producer of a connected thing also has to worry about the design process. And by that, we, I think, close the loop to what ThingWorks and what PDC is trying to do from the beginning, the design, the idea of a new product over the entire life cycle. And G&D, we are trying to add the security component to that.
And just to be clear for any listeners who aren't familiar with the lingo, ThingWorks and other lingo we're using as part of the PTC platform for the Internet of Things that we're describing. I wanted to ask you guys, one of the, I think, high-profile news things we've read about that brings these issues to a head has to do with smart cars and cars being hacked, right? Because there's been a bunch of different stories and demonstrations to sort of scare the shit out of people with, as I'm driving along and my friend hacked my car and showed me that he could drive it off the road, or these are getting a lot of attention in the news right now. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, sure, of course. Well, actually, this is, of course, a market that we are heavily involved, actually providing security solution, improving the security for connected vehicles. We have started already with many of the automotive makers providing just our security chips for securing the connectivity for the cars, just as a basic example. But that is really, again, and this is like a one piece of the car and securing the connectivity. Now we are talking, super complex environment, very complex. And if you know Bruce Snyder, who is kind of one of the fathers of cryptology and kind of a evangelist of security things, he always said that complex systems are the most kind of vulnerable, because there's so many things in there and things can go wrong, right? So the complex system are the kind of most dangerous and vulnerable ones. So the connectivity is one piece where we have started, but now we are working on more advanced security solutions, firewalls, intrusion detections, kind of a certificate management, key management systems for connected cars. So we definitely want to, for the cars, we have to have really kind of a bulletproof type of security, because you definitely don't want to be in a car with your family that is not secure and somehow vulnerable to hacks. And I feel the same thing about all kinds of equipment that actually goes to your inside your home, like security systems and stuff like that. You don't want to have someone else logging into your security cameras and see what you're doing, or somehow intruding your privacy. So I think those are the couple of the kind of for the personal perspective, a couple of very critical security areas that, of course, we are working on securing.
You're right, Tommy. Very true. Nevertheless, we must not forget that the attacks on the cars so far have been purely white hat and purely academic. So far, fortunately for the automotive industry, I would say, we do not have an installed base of connected cars that are justifying a viable business case for an attacker. As soon as we get, and by means of e-call regulations, e-call initiatives from the different automakers, remote management use cases that these automakers are pursuing in order to provide a better user experience, provide a better service level for their customers, we will see more and more connected cars being deployed. And by then, it's really time to think about this very, very seriously, about how to secure a connected device that did not have it in its DNA to be connected. And this starts, as Tommy said, by really decompiling this complex system and really looking into what and where we need to add security levels in the communication within the car network, but also from the car to the outside world via the means of the communication telematics box with the telematics control unit, but also with the vehicle to infrastructure type of things, where you are now communicating with, or we will in the future be communicating, thinking about autonomously driving cars with traffic lights, with side systems, with other infrastructure components, giving and allowing to really drive autonomously on a dedicated highway.
So you provided some advice to customers in terms of, which I liked, in terms of incorporate security thinking into your design from the beginning. And this is big when you talk about this whole minimum viable product mentality, right? Because a lot of times when these folks build these early prototypes, they're just thinking about, hey, let's build this amazing user experience. And they don't think about what the implications are. So that's one big piece of advice is security as part of design. Are there other things particular to IoT security that you would advise customers to be aware of based on what you've seen so far?
Yeah, let's see. I'll think about that
You got something, right?
Yeah, it's definitely the advice to choose wisely the weapons that you want to lead into this battle, because secure elements might appear from the very beginning or at first sight cumbersome and difficult to deal with. Nevertheless, it's no wonder that they so far have withstood the attacks from and telecommunication networks are also quite valuable attack targets. Right. So are payment systems, and I think clearly the migration now to EMV payment systems with chip support shows that the US is on the right track here, also embracing the fraud management and the fraud reduction capabilities of that technology. So yes, that's definitely hardware plus secure software saves a lot of headaches in the end.
Yeah, and I think also, well, one thing, I haven't really given this advice, I guess, but I mean, I think a lot of the security solutions exist. There's for your application, depending what it is, I think there's a lot of solutions available and a lot of techniques that you can apply. And like I said, they're not necessarily difficult to deploy or anything like that, and not even expensive necessarily. So if you select the right tools for you, they all exist, and you can pretty easily apply them. It's not difficult, and there's a lot of experts who can help, and a lot of companies who can help to how to get it done. So yeah.
The one thing that I think could be a challenge for what you're talking about is just the balance between user experience and high-grade security, because user experience has become like a vitally important piece of how everyone thinks about software now, right? And I can give you an example as one of these. Mark Zuckerberg was recently hacked. His Twitter account and some other accounts. Turns out he's using the same password for multiple accounts, and it wasn't a complicated password either. This is Mark friggin' Zuckerberg, right?
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting that you bring that up. Yeah, that's a good point. Okay. So yeah, this is interesting actually. Like coming from there's a couple of pet peeves of mine. One thing is, well, I lived of course in Europe, originally from Finland, and now been living in US for over 10 years. It's very interesting how the different approach in security Europeans have and what's happening in North America. Here, the convenience, I could say, kind of trumps all security type of things. So it's surprisingly see how easy it is. For example, let's say you have your online banking here in US. Well, they all basically just username and passwords to get into your online banking. In Europe, you have to use like the security tokens or one-time passwords and stuff like that. And here, those kind of things are not enabled by default. If you're lucky, your bank has actually a kind of second factor type of authentication method that you can enable if you want. But I kind of course, I enable those things immediately. But I assume most users don't. So they use some username and password that they can select themselves. There is no necessary even any basic enforcement on the policy and the complexity of the password. And here again, actually, there are solutions, like password keepers and stuff that you could easily use. So again, the technology is actually available to make your password secure. But for one reason or the other, well, maybe there's another like a kind of convenience factor there, and that people are not doing that. And there's plenty of examples like that where the convenience. So the security if you are building your device, you should put the security in and make sure that you have the convenience, because if it's not convenient, people will not actually use those security features. So if you can seamlessly build the security features in, that's the best.
And here, if I may add, I would also see a differentiation between the consumer IoT and the industrial IoT, because in the consumer IoT, we strongly believe that you will see different combinations of established technologies like hardware tokens to carry credentials, supplemented for exactly the sake of convenience, to supplement it by behavioral situational security. You can add quite easily biometrics. If you have a wearable, you can easily detect the heartbeat. You can easily match profiles. If this is really likely to be and likely enough to be the person who is entitled to perform this and that authentication or to access to this particular service or this particular entity. In the industrial environment, we are dealing with identities of machines, so they do not place so much emphasis, or tend to not place so much emphasis on convenience. There it is then the authentication and the identification of the appropriate users who have the access rights, who have the policies in place that they can really do and what they are supposed to do, but not access all the data, or to go back to John, to your previous example, by entering one entity, basically enter the entire firm, the entire network of the complete enterprise, so hacking your complete company.
Well, on the consumer side, I think the legal issues that going on between Apple and the FBI were very interesting, because I think on the consumer side, eventually you're going to manage most of the stuff through your phone. And so phone security is going to be a really, really big issue, I think, on the consumer side. On the industrial side, I think it's a little bit of a different story, where they probably won't be managing massive pieces of machinery through your phone necessarily, but maybe through some other type of approved device, though. So IT security will be dealing with some of the same stuff in the end, I would think. So, okay, so do you think that, as we wrap this up, do you think that are these things, these security issues, are they going to slow down adoption of the industrial IoT or not?
I really would love to say that in 5 years we will have figured it all out and everything will be safe. But as it happened in the past, the bad guys will continue to try to attack whatever wall you build, whatever fence you put up. So the race is still on and will be still on in 5 years. But let me say that by embracing these new type of technology and typically the financial sector has been the first ones to utilize new technologies also for making it easier, making it more secure, making it better to use for their customers. But we see that also in the IoT area. Let that embrace, and let's start thinking about security in the beginning, supplementing the existing security concept, keep in what's good, but supplement it with the behavioral part, with the parts of resilience, with the part of intrusion detection. So have the alarm system plus the safe installed, and let that guard your precious information for the security credentials.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna slow down. I think, like I said, I think all the technology exists, so I don't think it's gonna really slow down much anything. I mean, I'm sure there are some use cases that people might be hesitant to deploy because of the security things, and it's gonna slow one product development a little bit to make the security right, but in the big picture, it's not going to make any difference. So I'm sure the rollouts will happen.
Hey, well, in 6 months, Donald Trump could have access to the nuclear football. So who cares about the rest of our? Who cares about the rest of our security?
Now you got me.
Okay. Yeah, there's always
Yeah.
That's the one thing about security. The things happen through the weakest link.
The weakest link could be the human link, which is always the problem.
Which is many times it is the weakest link is the human link. Yep,
absolutely.
It's true.
Okay. Well, you guys have customers downstairs at your booth probably waiting and say, where the heck are these guys? So I'm going to send you back down, but I appreciate you sharing your insights. if people want to learn more about your solutions, can they find that on your website if I put the link up and stuff?
Of course, yes,
Okay.
they can find our website, and yeah, thanks for time. I hope you
Yep.
found this interesting, and
I did.
we are definitely always available to talk if anyone is interested in security or how we can potentially help them. We are always available.
Yeah, thanks
thank you very
guys. Appreciate it. Thanks a lot.